Welcome to Reality of Kink. This is Master Hook, and today I have somebody special with me who I'm hoping will continue to do these with me. This is Dandy. I'll let her say hi.
Hi there, guys.
So, what we were going to do is we're going to just do something that I think needed to be done for a while, which is kind of do just a analysis of 50 Shades of Grey as it relates to its impact in the BDSM community. First off, do you want to give a little bit about yourself and about your relationship towards the book? And, this, so people kind of have a sense of what, most people who know me and know what I do know my feeling towards the book and my feeling towards the movie. But go ahead and give you a little bit of what you think about it and, how that relates to you in your life.
Yeah, so I'm from San Francisco, California, and I've been active in the scene for about 3 years now. I read the books way before I was ever actively in the scene. I didn't really think that much of them at the time, either way. Now that I have been in the community and have watched the movies as well, just to kind of see what representation they have, my view of the books tends to be very negative as a representation of the community. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I kind of agree with Master Hook as far as the movie is slightly better, but that's kind of my background. Did read the books before I came out into the scene. So read the books when they came out like 5 years ago or... Right.
Yeah, I mean, for those who don't know the history of the book, it's a pretty screwed up situation. E.L. James, who, let's just all admit it, is a hack writer. I'm not the first to say that, nor will I be the last to say that. She was a writer of fan fiction, and I know if you take any time to go to this fan fiction forums, the chances are that the vast majority of the stuff you're going to read isn't really that good. And that's putting it lightly. Most of it is really horrid. And then you move into the world of slash fiction, which is where this project came out of, which is doing fan fiction, but sexualized. And the thing is that she wanted to take Twilight and do a slash fiction with Twilight, and somebody went, hey, that's a great idea. Why don't you find something else to make it into and turn it into 50 Shades of Grey? Now, the thing is that the original book kind of had an advantage over the other two books, and anybody who's read the books, and I think you can probably agree to this, the first book actually was probably the best out of the three books.
Yeah, and it had the most sort of BDSM in it. Real BDSM, not what we know in the scene as BDSM, but more BDSM themes.
Right, but I think it's minus the BDSM themes. It's the actual quality of the writing itself.
Yeah,
I think is better in the first book than it is in the second or third book, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that basically she was ripping off Stephanie Meyers, who did Twilight. She pretty much stole Stephanie's style to do from Twilight to do her fan fiction, and then just reconfigured some of the words to create what came out as 50 Shades of Grey.
Right, and which I do have to be honest is I have a background in reading young adult books, even though I'm in my 20s, so I do come from a background of liking, Hunger Games, those type of young adult books. But again, this series, it was, even when I read it years ago, it was kind of like,
But that was the thing, is you had actually read the original Twilights, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I liked the storytelling in Twilight, and the writing, everyone said it was horrible as well. I'm a dyslexic, so reading is always a challenge, but I'm still able to do it. But the writing wasn't as horrible, in my opinion, as 50 Shades of Grey. Right,
but the thing is that it's like, could you have seen, as somebody who read the original Twilights, where she got her inspiration to do 50 Shades of Grey? Could you see in the way the passages and the writing style and stuff like that, and what Stephanie Meyers had done for Twilight and what E.L. James did for 50 Shades of Grey? Can you see a similarity within at least the first book?
Yeah, and again, another thing that we kind of talked about off the speaker here is that there was somebody that, I don't remember his name, but we watched a review about the books.
Yeah, the Dom,
and it was really wonderful. I recommend those.
Yeah, if you haven't had a chance to go see him yet, I cannot say recommend him highly enough. I don't disagree. I don't agree with absolutely everything he says, but
he's not coming from a BDS. He's coming from a friends in the scene. Yeah, he's
an ally of the BDSM community, not in the BDSM community. So he actually spent the time talking to people about BDSM, and he did his research on through battered women's shelters and all. He actually
really awesome 3-part review.
Yeah,
on that.
He
really
did.
Awesome.
He did a lot of research and actually did a deep dive into not only the book itself, but analysis of the book that I think is completely justified.
Right, and my point that I wanted to bring up in accordance with this, and even not just the writing style itself, was what he was saying was one of the things that kind of goes off of Twilight is this whole, these women characters are written not to be extraordinary. They're very, described as very plain, and that's the fantasy part of this, right? Is that it's a normal, average girl, right, appealing to people with low self-confidence.
Well, it's actually it's a below average,
right?
Girl who has a very low self-esteem, and this amazing hunky guy comes out of the woodworks and suddenly sweeps them off their feet.
None of these actresses are below average looking that are portraying these characters,
right?
I think that's one of the problems about the whole plot, and I get it. It's like, you're taking, even anybody off the street that believes they're below average or whatever they can meet a hunky guy that will buy them a computer and do all this stuff. And I mean, we live in a reality of fantasy in the scene, so we know what we're capable of.
I mean,
that's
the thing about the scene. We live in this kind of mid-world between having to deal with the reality aspect, which is what I like talking about, of BDSM and kink and the master-slave relationships and so on, and the fantasy aspect of it. And the problem is that when you get a book like this that completely misrepresents the community, because as you go further in the books, you find out that he basically was tricked into getting into the lifestyle.
Yeah, underage, by the way. Totally do not agree with that, and I don't agree with that.
And she has to, it's one of those, I have to save him from his whatever it is. And it just happens to be what she needs to save him is from BDSM.
It's a trope, though. I feel like it's an overdrawn trope, so sorry if we're getting a little off topic, but I feel like that's one of the things is there's so many tropes, and in the BDSM, any media representing BDSM, there's some level of damage, right?
But that's unfortunately the bad aspect, that unfortunately most media represents people within the BDSM community as somewhat damaged. And the truth is that for the vast majority of us, that is not true at all. Are there people? Yeah. But you know what? Take any walk of life.
Everybody has trauma and things they're working through.
Yeah, we all have our own baggage. The thing about it is that the vast majority of the people within the BDSM community don't have this problem. This is something that has been made up as an excuse to go, and that's why they're into it. They don't want to take the time or energy, and Stephanie and E.L. James especially did not want to take the time to actually learn about anything about us. So she created this scenario using literally shit she copied off the internet, and somehow that's supposed to be a positive? Now, taking a step back from my complete hatred of the book and my dislike but still mild praise for the movie, the question really comes down to this simple question. Was it a positive ultimately for the community? I'm going to let you answer that first.
I think, like you say, there's an up and down. Everything has a reaction, right? And I think the reaction was a lot of people were brought to the community that maybe were curious or interested, but I wouldn't say overall that it was positive. I would say there's a lot of negative portrayals of us, and people I know in the community very much look at this as a very abusive dynamic and abusive situation because it's not representative of us.
Oh no, the vast majority of the people in the community hate the book.
But like I said, I have friends that came in because of the book, and I love those people, and I'm really, if you're listening, I love having you around, and so I'm glad that you found us that way. But I don't know, it's definitely a a scale there.
Yeah, and the thing about it is that, like I said, this is why I consider the fact that 50 Shades even made this list, I think is ridiculous. 50 Shades of Grey to me is the second best worst thing to ever happen to the BDSM community. The first being the internet. And a lot of people would be upset with me for saying that the internet was, a bad thing for the BDSM community. And my answer is, but I also said it's the best thing that ever happened to the community.
That's how I found, I had an ex that had found the community. He said, go on FetLife, look at it, you're really kinky, you should check this out. And I'm like, well, right. I don't really know. And I went to my first munch alone, and I found it on FetLife and started, looking at people locally and talking to people online, and I felt more comfortable to approach the scene. So I think what you're saying is right, is that there's a lot of... But
it also, like I said, it brought a lot of positivity, but it also brought a ton of negativity as well. But I think 50 Shades did the exact same thing, but on a lesser scale. What it did, unfortunately, is it shined a light on the community in such a negative manner that especially when the movie came out, I was doing video after video, going off on people for claiming that 50 Shades of Grey and BDSM were leading to abuse and rape of women, and I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
Well, real BDSM with consent and safe words should not be leading to rape or non-consensual things. Unfortunately, it does sometimes, but...
No, I mean, but that happens in any...
group of people.
Yeah, I mean, because the thing about it is that one thing that we do, which I think is outside of it, is we are a very sexual community. And whether people are... asexual, gay, straight, bisexual, whatever, queer, whatever, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is that you go into a club, there's naked people. There's probably a place in some clubs where people are fucking. There's places where people are being tied down with, certain body parts being fully exposed. And anybody who tells me, though, that's not sexual, I'm going to say you're wrong.
Well, so this brings an interesting kind of bridge on the topic is access to community and access to the scene, really, because now you're saying, with the internet opened up, people can look on the calendar right in the Bay Area and come to things without being connected, and they have to obey the rules.
They can even do it in the small town like I'm in, where with a small community, you can see everything that's happening in your local area. But like I said, the problem is, and this is one of the things that the community's gotten really decent at, and sometimes overzealously, which is where my position is still kind of, that they kind of tend to have a tendency to X people out of the community. But my problem of Xing people out of the community, that still doesn't mean they don't have access to things like, to collar space and FetLife, where they can still find people who are going to be victims to them. Where if you keep them within the community, at least you can monitor what they're doing. And it's, there's an argument to be made both ways on this.
Yeah, I disagree with you. I mean, I see where you're coming from, but in my community, there are people that are banned for silly reasons or not. But I think in general, people are banned for pretty legitimate reasons. And there are some extreme things that were going on in my community. And there's a person that people know, if that person comes around, we're not okay with that.
But the problem is that if they're outside of the purview of the organizations, and they don't have anybody talking to them, telling them, hey, that's stupid, you can't do that, we get a Christian Grey situation where he is going to be abusive, he is going to hurt people, he is going to do things like contracts that are totally not valid or legal, and, have his own little private thing, and, and take people and do, because, like I said, the thing about it is what he did with Anastasia in this book, nobody in the community would say, yeah, that's a proper way of doing it.
Well, my question is, I don't know if people know, maybe you even know, but if you sign a non-disclosure agreement, if somebody rapes you or does something unconsensual, that doesn't mean you can't go to the police. No, because
a non-disclosure agreement does not...
The media, right?
No, the non-disclosure agreement stops at when a law is broken.
Right, because I know at least in the movie he had her sign one. I think in the book, if I'm remembering.
No, he had her sign it in the book. He had her sign it in the movie. The way they did the contract in the movie was god-awful. The way they did it in the movie...
Oh, you just said the movie.
Sorry, the way they did it in the book was god-awful. The way they did it in the movie was better. But still, simple little things that people within the BDSM community, because she says, oh, he went to classes on how to be a dominant. Why the fuck doesn't he do aftercare then?
Right, or any communication really of any kind.
Yeah, and it's like he's horrible at communication, which is the absolute last thing a dominant needs to be. He doesn't know how to do. He doesn't understand the need and or desire for aftercare. And to be fair, I've known dominants that don't like to do aftercare.
But sometimes they tell people, I don't do aftercare. If you need aftercare, you need to find someone else. But they tell them before they get involved.
Right.
And this is negotiated.
Right.
Or people are with their dominant and they're playing with someone else. I can get aftercare from my dominant. I don't need it from you. And that happens too, where submissives or bottoms are like, I don't need aftercare from you. I'm here with my master. I'm here with my mistress. I'm here with my dominant.
Right.
But
that's something that, again... If he was actually somebody that spent the time to learn how to be a dominant, whoever the hell was teaching him sucked.
Well, this lady taught him, right? And he was under...
Well, no.
After the classes.
The way the book said is that he was supposedly submissive to this Mrs. Robinson character, which apparently was in the second movie. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I've seen the second movie.
And it was kind of like, I was screwed up, but he's still friends with her.
There's a whole nother, that's outside of this video.
He's still sleeping with her. And he's still doing all of these things with her, even though supposedly she was this abusive monster who took him, took his virginity at a young age because his mother was a crack whore. And I'm like sitting here going, yeah, that's something. It's a realistic story.
Well, so now they're showing not only one person in the scene that's abusive and breaking the law. Well, he's not technically breaking the law. He's breaking a lot of moral things that we as a community think are not okay. But this woman is clearly broke the law, and that's one of the characters were introduced as being BDSM, and the second one is him. I think through the whole series, they're the only people that are really introduced to us that are a part of the scene or into BDSM.
Right, and the thing about it is that they...
Oh, except his ex-slave. His ex-slave or his ex-partner is a crazy woman.
Right.
So everyone being portrayed in this series...
is portrayed negatively.
Completely negatively.
Right, and Anastasia has to be his, be his savior.
Vanilla White Knight, Nitrous, or whatever. Yeah. That's completely, you're right. That's completely how it's portrayed.
Which is the thing is that, to me, that whole concept is BS. Because let's go to the extreme opposite. And I know I'm going to piss people off by talking about this. The Gorian series.
I've never watched it.
You've never read it.
I've never read it or watched it.
But you know kind of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's very extreme.
Yeah.
What I hear. I mean, I'm sorry, anyone out there that's into it consensually, that's your game.
The thing is that, if you like it, cool. But you know what? The thing is that Gore never got the foothold that 50 Shades got. I mean, it got a big enough foothold to get 2 movies. Both were, anybody who says, yeah, they were masterpieces, I want to know what you're smoking. Because the thing about it is that neither of them, even the one with Jack Palance, was good. Nothing about these movies was good. And if the actual books themselves were really schlockily written.
I just think there's no, I think we've kind of gone on a tangent, but I just think that there's no good representation. This is not a good representation. 50 Shades of Grey is not a good representation.
Yeah,
at all.
No, unfortunately... There's not really, I've tried, maybe Secretary is a decent representation.
I still think that there's some borderline.
The fact that she, she's a cutter she's a vanilla cutter before getting into a relationship with him.
Right, damage again. And not to say that people don't have their damage. And I also want to advocate I believe you can do a lot of therapeutic things. You also need a therapist, in my opinion. You also need other ways and friends and support. But you can use kink to help heal and do a lot of good stuff that's good for you and cathartic and healthy. But it's not a one-trick pony. Right. It's not like you're just going to start doing this and not be a cutter.
Yeah. And the thing is that it's I think the thing that, unfortunately, every version of media regarding BDSM, we've started to see some halfway positive portrayals, but usually done for comedy.
There's some documentaries out there. I have some friends that were in a documentary. I don't know when it's released, but it was about like the scene in the Bay Area. Right. And so there is some real life.
The Kink movie, right?
I don't think so. I think it was a real life. I don't remember who.
Because the Kink movie was, and that's another one that.
And I was asked if I wanted to be in this documentary, and I said, no, because I don't want my face.
But it's like the Kink movie. If you haven't seen it, it's actually okay. It was dealing with the kink.com website, at the Citadel, before they shut down and moved out of San Francisco.
You mean at the Armory?
Yeah, at the Armory. But they were, they shot a whole documentary about.
Oh, I've seen another one that was, I thought, from a completely separate documentary.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, the thing is
years ago though.
But the thing is that it's like, unfortunately, no one has done anything of value. There's no TV show that shows BDSM in a positive light. There's no movie that has shown BDSM in a positive light. I think the closest is that Indian internet show.
What was it called?
Oh, hell, I forget.
I've never heard of it, really.
Yeah, I would have to show you some of it.
But I'm curious as if people do watch this and want to comment, I'm curious if you could think of a portrayal, okay, either based on personal experience or without, you don't have to say your name or anything like that, but if you could pick a portrayal, an accurate portrayal in the media that would be vanilla-ish enough to be in the media, right, but kinky, what would you choose? Like, what would you think is a good...
I think probably the best, the thing from CSI.
I've seen some, but in CSI there's like, oh, these people had a dungeon in their basement. How naughty. Right. Oh, and I'm like, but
also that the mistress who was running the pro dom location, and she had to... there was like multiple storylines with her, and eventually one of them, one of the people killed one of her, I think her daughter or something. So she took him out to the middle of the desert, and what's his name, Grissom, the guy who was the lead at the time, had to go and stop her before she killed him. And it was like, yeah, it was really...
That sounds crazy. I'm sorry, like... I don't know about you guys, but I don't hear or see any of that stuff.
No, but it's like, because I see a lot of that stuff, and it's like, but it's like...
No, I mean in real life, community.
No, because that doesn't exist. I mean, that's unfortunate. It's like, even that, which I think was a halfway decent portrayal,
but proing is so different than... I mean, it's a part of the community, but it is a profession. It is a very separate, in my opinion, thing. People love it. Like, that's great. I have no shame in that.
To me, pro dom is like professional wrestling and the mixed martial arts. It is what we do, but it's really super staged and for money.
No shame in it, though. I mean,
no. I mean, if that's what people do, great, have fun. But the problem I have with it is I don't want people to think that is what the community is, or look at 50 Shades and go, that's what the community is.
That's one of the things you can Google, pro dom, and you'll find a lot of stuff on the internet about it. And you'll find a lot of people that are, doing that. And that's great. Like I said, that's great for those people. But I just think that there isn't, and I know we're getting, again, kind of into the reputation of the movie and media, but I think that that's part of the effect, is that it's painting us even worse than we were painted before. It is giving us more...
It's painting us in a negative light, and unfortunately... The reality is that who we are as individuals and who we are as a community is massively not understood. And the fact that, it's like if you hear that some politician or something is into BDSM, their career's over. Okay?
It can be over for you at a regular job.
Yeah, I mean...
And
the fact that we've got to a point where now the term kink shaming
is in the media.
Has made it into the lexicon.
Right.
Okay, that we have now moved to a point where kink shaming is now in the lexicon, I think is pretty amazing and sad simultaneously.
Well, the positives, it has brought us, it's weird because even though it's really, there's a lot of borderline abuse and a lot of things that are not really, they're not BDSM and they're not safe in my opinion, a lot of women and people were really into this book, and there was a lot of buzz about it. And so I think it did bring a lot of female attention to people like, oh, let's go to, this regular sex shop and try a blindfold. And it did bring...
Yeah, well, that was where suddenly now there was 50 Shades of Grey BDSM merchandise.
Nice. They totally no people in the scene really would buy it, so...
Because it was mostly garbage. But
the quality was crap on a lot of it.
The quality was garbage, but the thing about it is that ultimately, like I said, this is one of the reasons why I had to put it as my number 2 when it comes to the best worst things to ever happen to the community, because regardless of how bad the book is, regardless of how bad the movies are, regardless of how dangerous some of the writing is, how inept the author is, I can keep going down the things of how horrible it actually is.
I just think the reason... Sorry,
but
I know...
it was the first book of erotic fiction, regardless of how poor the quality was, to not be considered porn.
It's just really... It is really saddening, though, because it's everything the community is not, in my opinion. The representation is 180 compared to reality.
But it's like, if I look at that, then I look at something like, another one which was put on the shelves that nobody screamed and said, oh, that's porn, was the Anne Rice's Cinderella
I haven't read that one. I heard it was really good.
It's really raunchy.
Yeah, I heard it's really good.
And you want to talk about...
Very BDSM, right?
It, not only that, but it literally starts off with Prince Charming raping Sleeping Cinderella.
Oh, okay, that's...
Or it's not Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty. But the Sleeping Beauty trilogy. It literally starts off with Prince Charming raping.
Okay, so trigger warning, guys, on that one.
Yeah. This entire book, then after he wakes her up, he drags her behind his horse, has her walk behind his horse, stark naked,
right,
back into his town.
But no consent, because she was...
No, she was asleep.
Okay, see, these are the things. It's like, there's this thing about in non-reality and not even in play, but where it's like, oh, well, something is still sexy even though it's wrong, right? A lot of this stuff can be sexy even though it's wrong. We're not doing things that are wrong. We're not doing things that are unconsensual. Well, but the thinking of it is, the book itself is erotic, right? Even though it's...
Right, yeah, but even though
it's completely not consensual, and that would not fly.
Yeah, because if you did any of this in the community...
Well, unless you were consensual non-consent before.
But again, a consensual non-consensual using a rack style system, which at this point some people hear that and go, "What the hell did you just say?"
Do we want to explain that one?
Yeah, let's do that.
So consensual non-consent. Let's hear your take on it first.
Well, a consensual non-consent to me is very much the same as rack. The risk-aware consensual kink. Basically meaning before the play starts, it's like either way I describe SSC. Safe, sane, and consensual, and rack, is SSC is like a train.
Safe, sane, consensual.
Yeah, safe, sane, and consensual. It's like a train versus rack, which is like a roller coaster. Okay, because the train, there's a cord you can pull to stop the train.
I still feel like with consensual non-consent, you could still get out of it.
But
it's harder to get out of it.
Right, but that's why I say it falls to me within the rack system, because the rack system basically says, we're going to discuss all of this. We're going to talk about all of this.
Like, I feel like a lot of MSs...
You're going to agree to,
I feel like we're sometimes consensual or not.
Right, but it's like, but we've had discussions
prior. We've pre-consented. That's why it's consensual non-consent.
Right, because the thing is that, it's like, I don't have to say, hey, do you mind if I grab your hair? Every time I grab your hair. Because the thing is, you've already consented to it without having to me ask every single time. This is one of my absolute problems with the enthusiastic consent concept. I have to, is it okay if I touch this? Is it okay if I do this?
Which is really important with new people, and it's really important if you're not in an established. I think it's really important, even though it isn't sexy to be like, can I touch your leg? Can I do this?
Yeah, but there's a difference between doing it when it's like if you pre-negotiate and ask,
then you know what things you can do.
If you literally ask all those questions,
before you're in the
is it okay if I touch this? Is it okay if I touch that? Is it okay if I squeeze your breast? Is it okay if I finger your pussy? Is it okay if I do this? Is it okay if I do that? If you ask all of these questions before the play happens...
Yeah, which is normally what I do when I am topping.
Right. You don't have to then go, I'm going to touch this now. Is that okay? I'm going to touch this now.
No, and if you're...
And if you have to do that, then you don't understand how
or how to negotiate.
How to negotiate.
Because you shouldn't, and another thing I want to say for people, and I don't know what the levels of people here that are listening to this, always negotiate the lower end, in my opinion. If you're new with somebody, not in a dynamic with somebody, or in a new dynamic and not comfortable, don't negotiate for
high-end shit.
So don't negotiate for like a 2-hour scene for the first time with somebody with like needles and flogging and all this. Not that those are extreme things, but if you've never played with the person and it's not in your comfort zone or in your yes box in the moment, that may not be the best thing to lead with.
Yeah, because the thing is that you want to, and this is something I think that the book completely, yes, he would ask, can I do this, do that? And it turns out that she hated everything. And she was doing something I would just be... Never do this. Ever, 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 ever do this. Don't ever go, oh, I'm willing to endure the pain that you're going to give me because I really like you being fucked by you.
Well, that's kind of a gray area. With me, for example, I don't like pain inherently. I like the connectiveness of a power exchange with some of the pain, and I have been very select on. So I see what you're saying. I don't think you should endure anything for anyone.
No, and especially especially after, and this is the thing that just frustrated the hell out of me. One time, yes. But then you talk to him and say, I didn't like this, I didn't like that, I didn't like this, I didn't like that. And if he keeps insisting or she keeps insisting on doing that thing, whoever it is, if they keep insisting that they have to do this to have a relationship with you, then it's probably a red flag that you should not be involved in that relationship. But unfortunately, people have a tendency to ignore those signs.
That's why I say negotiate low first, especially when you're first starting out with someone.
But it's like...
If they can't respect your boundaries, then they can't respect you.
It's like I said, there's the big 5. Conversation, negotiation, consent, safe words, aftercare. You have to have all of these.
Right.
Before... You have to have all of these, things to make a scene work properly. And so people say, well, you don't really need, safe words all the time. Yeah, I'm going to say on a rare occasion, but you know what? If somebody, I don't care if you're doing a scene without safe words and somebody gets to a point where their life is in danger.
You need a safe word. You need to get out of it.
Right.
That's not being even rack, that's not being a very respectful, smart player. And the same thing even in an MS context. Who really wants to push their slave to the point that they're going to die? Or that they're going to go in the ER? Or that's just not really healthy.
But that breaks the simple rule of real world first. Because the thing about it is that it's like, that's again, I look at this book and this movie and I compare it to my rules, and I've got to say they both break these rules constantly.
Well, let's also we haven't talked about the fact that this guy is rich. That's another piece here that brings in this fantasy to the average or under average woman is, this rich guy into this erotic stuff.
Will take care of me.
Yeah, blah, blah, he's buying me a laptop and he's going to Georgia and following me, and there's so many things wrong with that.
Yeah, and that, and then he steals my car and buys me another one, but I seem to be okay with that, strangely enough. No.
The thing is I guess I could say that I do see even in both book and movie perspective, why this character would be attracted to Anastasia, because she does have more submissive type tendencies based on her personality, but she was not in kink or aware of anything until he got her into this.
But that's where, again, I think E.L. James, her writing style falls apart massively. She was supposedly basically an asexual virgin all the way through high school. And my thing is,
how do you write about this?
How do you not know how to write for a modern teenage girl? That might have been your experience, E.L. James, but that's not the experience of especially somebody who looked like Anastasia Steele.
Right, well, they're saying that, like, oh, she was but we're saying she's a below average, but no, there's men hitting on her, that Juan or whoever the friend was hitting on her, and, I mean, clearly...
And it's not like she wouldn't have had hundreds of opportunities while even going through high school, because supposedly she was a straight-A student, blah, blah, blah. Bottom line is,
but I have to say, I have met women, they definitely have dated and had, like, sex with people, but they never masturbated or did anything alone, because culture tells them, oh, why would you need that? All you need is a man or another, or if you're a lesbian, maybe it's a little different, but you need a partner and to be able to do that, and, or if you're queer, but that's just not right, in my opinion. This escalates that stereotype.
But also the thing is that look at where they live. Okay, she's not living in rural Utah or rural, Arkansas. She's living in Seattle.
Right.
Okay, Seattle. One of the most liberal,
there's
liberal
a big scene there too.
Yeah, one of the most liberal cities in the entire country, and she never talked about or had sex.
I also want to say that I understand that this character is really in the public eye, but I feel like if there was a rich mogul in a scene in a big city, that people would know a little bit, or he would be involved in some coerced way.
That's
even if being masked or something.
Right.
I feel like someone would jump on that. Oh, I'm this rich. Well, I'm gonna disguise myself and go into clubs and pick up women. Like, I honestly feel like that would be more likely.
But here's one of the things is that he actually said somewhere, it was said somewhere in the book, that how he picked up women was by going to classes.
Right.
And what classes would he have gone to? Classes put on by...
the groups in Seattle.
Exactly. So guess what? The groups in Seattle would have known of his existence.
Right. So so then this is an interesting place, and I know we're running a little long on this, but...
It doesn't matter.
So the scene would have known about him. Why is he not going to things? Is he banned from the scene? I mean, clearly, based on his behavior, he should be banned. If he went to one event, think about he went to one event in a mask,
right,
and started treating women the way he's treating Anastasia, he would absolutely be banned.
He would be banned very quickly. But the thing about it is that because of course E.L. James has no bleeding fucking idea of what the community actually is, and especially she's writing about a character who lives in Seattle who has a very active BDSM community, a very well-established BDSM leather, community. Because again, it was the community in Seattle, had the influx from the soldiers from World War II, so they were one of the other hotspots, along with Chicago, along with New York, along with San Diego, along with California, or Los Angeles, and along with San Francisco, Portland to some extent. The gay leather scene, I think, has a foothold in Portland, but not a huge one, but has a much, much stronger one in Seattle, has a much, much stronger one in Los Angeles, San Diego, and Chicago, and New York. Miami to a certain extent. But the thing is that
I feel like this character must have gotten banned. I never thought about this until right now. My mind is like, I mean, if he went to classes and he just picked up a woman at the class and never went to events, that would, bring my spikes up.
No, that would immediately...
Okay, if I saw you at, 9 or 10 classes and other people had vetted you, but if I never saw you at a party or had any,
But it's like you always went to events just to pick up girls. He would get the reputation of a guy who only comes to
red flag event. Guys. That's right. A red flag. I'm sorry. I do believe that, if you're out at events and you see the same person, maybe you're into the same stuff and it's worth talking to them. But I think if you're just going to classes to pick up submissives, dominants, whatever, maybe you're not a community type.
But
I don't know.
But even with the non-disclosure and blah, blah, blah thing.
But he was out of class. I mean, if he was out of class, I had other people. Obviously,
right, but what I'm saying is that the aftermath of it. Because we know, especially because of the one girl, if there's one girl, there's multiple, of, submissives that he has had who have left him damaged.
Well, and again, going back to the portrayal, this slave type, in the second movie we see this, okay? And it's been a while again, guys, since I've read the books, but in the movie, the slave type is really jealous and upset, the ex-slave, about him being in love with Anastasia, because that was never on the table for her and Christian, even though she was a slave and wanted his love. And she tries to freaking kill Anastasia with a gun. I mean, this is like, obviously, mental health issue. Right. I mean, that's a horrible portrayal. What kind of women is he?
Right, but that's where. After? But the thing about it is that it's.
Sorry, I'm getting loud, guys. I'm getting excited.
It's the thing about it is that I don't have an issue with him playing with different kinds of people and things like that. It's just if you take this situation and apply it to the reality of not only the community at large, but specifically the Seattle community. I've not been involved in the Seattle community, and if people out there have been involved in the Seattle community, and if I'm wrong about this, please tell me. But I know from the communities I've been around, I know this well enough. If some creeper was just coming in and poaching girls from classes, and using the "I'm rich, come to my place," and then they go, people find out they're going to his place.
And they never see him for a long time.
And then they disappear for months on end. And then they show back up.
All damaged and upset.
And then here he comes again looking for another girl. After a while, the community would go, "Excuse me, you're not welcome here anymore." Because the thing is that even with a non-disclosure agreement, they would physically see what these girls are like.
Right, even if the girl didn't say anything.
Right, even if she knew that she couldn't say anything, they could tell from her demeanor something horrible happened. And whether it was because he went too far with his sexual stuff, or
he wasn't emotionally present and available.
He wasn't emotionally present and available, but he loved beating the crap out of them. And this is not to say that people like this don't exist. There are people within the community that are emotionally, they separate their emotions so that when they are doing BDSM stuff, they're basically emotionless and just going through the motions. There's nothing wrong with that if they know that up front.
Yeah, if that's negotiated.
But we see from his character that he has a tendency to use sex as a weapon to get these girls to do what he wants. He is a manipulator.
Yeah, and he played on a innocent, virginal character that has never even been involved in any of this, let alone had sex. And again, I think that's really unrealistic in Seattle. But for whatever reason, as easily.
But see, part of my issue with her not having sex anymore, she wasn't religious. If she was religious in a very strict religion, I could understand her not having had sex. I could understand her doing keeping herself pure or whatever.
Honestly, I've not met as many 21-year-old women that are virgins.
Right.
That are not religious.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially that are willing to jump into a relationship like that so fast and jump into bed within a month.
It wasn't even a month, it was a couple days. Oh my. This is the thing that...
No, and I'm not slut-shaming anybody. I love sex. I love having sex with people.
But it's not, I have no issue with her sleeping with him. What I have a problem with is the fact that her portrayal makes no sense. The portrayal of him makes sense if you take that character, put him in the context of what would this person happen to this person within the actual community, and the answer is eventually he would be banned.
Yeah.
And the community at large would eventually just go, this guy. Let's say hypothetically, no one really knew he was Christian Grey.
Right, like you wore a mask or something.
Because the community at large has a tendency to use scene names.
Yeah.
Okay, And I seriously doubt that he would go in and say, "Hi, I'm Christian Grey. I'm the multi-billionaire. Hi, I'm Christian Grey. I'm the multi-billionaire."
Right. Well, he would probably wear a mask and use an indiscreet name. But again, if he's probably going to leave with his money at some point.
But it's very, very, very rare for somebody, even who's, hiding their name for purpose. And I've been around people like this, famous people who were cops, people who were firemen, teachers, so on and so on, who use aliases within the community, which that's perfectly fine and acceptable. It's like Master Hook is not, it's not my real name, and Dandy is not yours. But the thing about it is that the fact that he is using, that he would show up in a mask. I
don't know if they ever said that in the books. I just
but I'm saying,
he would have to.
He would have to because he's such a famous individual.
Yeah, his face would be everywhere in Seattle.
Right, and the thing about it is that they never said he's the mysterious person, because he's like, "Oh, sure, I'll take photos." So, of course, everybody's going to know who the hell he is. How many times have you been to a club and people show up, I'm not talking about the clubs themselves, munches or classes.
In a mask. Yeah, that would be really weird.
Immediately it would throw up a red flag.
Right. Again, unless it was a class or something that was about wearing masks.
Right.
Or if you were at a party that was a masquerade, you could get away with it and not be creepy.
Right. No, I mean, if you...
Or even at a party, you could get away with it.
Right, because that's something that, maybe that's part of your... part of the scene you're doing that night is you're doing an incognito scene where, you're spending except for the time that you have to then go up and sign in for the event, you have to show them ID and so on, and show them your face to show them that you're actually you. The people who run the clubs will still know who he is.
But we're saying he's going to a class in a mask. So that is an interesting point. We really divulged a lot of things that I never would have thought about.
No, because, like I said, this is where, again, E.L. James had no clue what she was writing about. Because if you actually break it down, it falls apart on its face. And that's even before. This is the two characters. We're not
even talking about even them in a relationship yet. We're only talking about them two separate people.
Right. This is just everything that happens prior to the movie falls flat on its face. And then you have what actually happens within it, especially because supposedly he went to a bunch of classes about BDSM, and yes, that's where he picked up girls, but you know what?
I wonder if it's a lie.
But
it could also be a lie.
But if it is...
Clearly it could be a lie.
But the thing about it is that...
Either he's a creeper and he went to the classes and everyone knows he's a creeper, or he really didn't go to the classes. Either way.
That, or he did go to the classes and he kept sending girls back damage, and he eventually got banned from the community, and that's why he decided to go after a vanilla girl.
Right.
That's a possibility as well.
Both are bad. So, we haven't even gotten into the depths of the book, and we can already see all the flaws here.
The fact that, again, that E.L. James had no clue, again, yes, she used the Twilight characters as her starting point. You can see that in the first book. Second book and the third book go completely off rail. Because then it becomes we need to save Christian Grey and turn him back into a normal vanilla guy. Why?
There's also a very damaging part of the second, and I'm sorry if anyone hasn't seen it and wants to spoilers, but in the second movie, Mrs. Robinson is telling Anna he needs a submissive. He needs a slave in his life. This is what he needs. And Anna keeps believing that, no, that's not true, and kind of shaming him for it, that's what he believes he needs. And I'm not saying that his character is good or the portrayal is correct, but I think that that's true for some people. For me as a slave type, it's a core need of mine to have.
No, and as a master type, that's what I need. I need somebody who will fill that role, and that does not mean I'm damaged because of that.
Yeah, if it's a consensual relationship, then you're good.
Right, and the fact that you are somebody that wants a master type does not mean that you are damaged for wanting to serve somebody. And I think that the sadness is that portrayed this as a romance, as a kinky romance.
It's not at all.
It's not. It's an abusive relationship both ways. I mean, seriously, the fact that she is trying to change him from his core identity
also is abusive.
Is also abusive.
Right, and that getting married and meeting the right girl will change you. Well, and I don't think that that's true for almost anybody in this lifestyle. No, if you really are committed and you really, I mean, some people try it and are not really into it.
No, but it's like I walked away for a little bit early on, way before I started doing my YouTube stuff, and I realized it was a bad move. When I was in my marriage, I tried stepping away for a little bit, and guess what? That lasted all of about maybe 3 months.
Right, and the thing is especially somebody that identifies as like a master type, which clearly he does, if he wants the amount of control he is wanting from her, I don't see a problem with wanting to control those things. I see a problem with not getting someone's consent and them not being okay with it, and you controlling everything. No, that's the problem.
The thing is that he had about 25 to 30% of what it really takes to be a master. And I'm not even talking about the Red Room. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the thing about it is that he has the basics, but not by much. It's like if supposedly he went to these classes, obviously he wasn't paying attention. Because
he was trying to pick up the girls.
Right, because the simple things like negotiation and aftercare, instead of just, here's a contract. And I'm like...
Well, he did ask her to look up the things to agree to them, which I don't think is accurate. I mean, but it is something, but it's not...
But that's where... But, like, you know...
But who, like, buys people a bunch of gifts?
$1,500 and for 3 old books. Super expensive.
Within, a week.
Right, and I'm sorry, but that's the fantasy.
Yeah.
And the thing is that I would have almost been okay with this if it had... moved to a TPE fantasy.
It almost is a TPE fantasy, but without the consent.
Yeah. If you don't know what TPE is, it's total power exchange, basically meaning that
consensual non-consent is included in that.
Total,
nothing's off limits.
Nothing's off limits. You're totally at the mercy. You don't have a job. You don't have anything.
You can have a job, but
right. But basically, your
job is controlled by the master type.
Right. Your entire life is controlled by his will and his action. I've always stated that I think that that's an unrealistic way of looking at this life. But I honestly would have probably been better with this book if it had been that. So.
It was definitely going that way, but
and like I said, I mean, and the thing is that overall, again, I think the impact on the community has been both positive and negative, and we could probably spend the next hour just overanalyzing the hell out of this book. But the last thing I want to bring up is the Red Room as an individual
scene or thing,
right. When I saw it, in the way it was described in the book, god awful. Because just she had no fucking clue what she was talking about. But the movie version.
The room itself was good.
If that was somebody's actual dungeon room, I'd be impressed. The thing is that the thing about the movie, which I heard about was...
But how would he have known all the things about all the implements? That's my question. He must have really had to go to the classes.
Exactly. This is where...
Where did he buy the toys? Online, or did he go to... They look good.
Yeah, the quality of toys. He had to go and find craftsmen to make half of that shit. The bed, it's not something you can buy online. Most of those floggers were not something you could buy over the internet. You're not going to go to Amazon and buy those floggers. And find that good quality,
No. You have to go to a vendor local, or...
You're gonna have to find, a vendor online and talk to them. And the thing about it is that the quality of even the riding crop, and you can buy riding crops at, tax stores and online, but that quality of that riding crop told me this was not a cheap one. His bed that he had, again, custom made. The entire room from the ground up was custom made. And do you really think he would just call in some general contractor, or he did it himself? No. He had to go to the community and find somebody who knew how to build dungeon equipment to come in and do it. This, to me, points the fact that he, at one point, was involved in the community.
And then was banned.
And then got banned. And that's the only way that character makes sense.
That's good. That's interesting. I'm curious to see what people think about that.
Yeah,
that is really... We're like over an hour.
Yeah, we're like almost at an hour here. So yeah, this is gonna be, hopefully the new way that we're going to be doing these podcasts. Yeah, this is gonna be, whenever we can get together, we'll be doing it together. If not, then we'll figure out a different way to record it. But I think this was a good start. So what did you think?
Yeah, I think it was really interesting. Even though it was I'm like, it's an hour.
Yeah, you were like, oh, we'll get 10 minutes out of this. Maybe 15.
I was like, oh my God, are people going to listen to this crap? That's what I'm
Yeah, and I'm like, literally, it's like we're an hour. We went
places I didn't expect to go.
But that's the fun of it.
So thanks everyone for listening.
That's it for now. So see you next time. Be well and safe.